Hi teacher, how are you? This is my oral presentation. I go to the point. I work or I design my test for a second grade. In there you can see the information okay, about the group. This group belongs to a school called Barrio Belén, and they are 16 students from 7 to 8. And well, those were my students last year. Their English is basic, and the unit selected is my body. And about the teaching method, I will say that most of the time I use total physical response, since they are not supposed to write or to read. They I am pretty active with them. With this I mean that I have to move and I have to mimic a lot, and it's easier for them to understand when, for example, you say or I say this is my nose and I point my nose. They are visual. Kids are visual, really visual, so it's easier for them to understand. So that is why it's more like total physical response. But this is more for the listening, um, linguistic objective. But for the speaking, it's more I use more the communicative, because I try to teach them to communicate basic communication, of course, but actually at least to communicate in a normal way in the real life. So I wrote total physical response, but there is a little bit of communicative approach in there too. Okay, you can see the table of specifications. My test is 35 points at 20%. Study block, as I said before, my body. And I am um, using matching, completion, identification, and production. So, matching, to me, well, first of all these items are related with exercises that we have done in class already. So they are familiar with all this. There is nothing new in here for them. As the book says, it has to be a mirror. So I try to do it. So the first one is matching. They have to match the different shapes. And this is a listening one. I designed 3 listening items and 1 production. Shapes, to me, is a good way to evaluate it by listening. It is. I was able to find a way to evaluate shapes in a listening item. And well, I use just 5 few shapes, since it's in second grade. Those are the basic ones. It's not that they have a lot of different shapes in second grade to learn. So those are the basic ones. And then I have completion. Numbers, I decide to evaluate numbers in here. This way I know that at least in all the tests that I have checked as examples, I have never seen that the students are requested to write sequences, numbers. But this is something that I like to work with them. I like to maybe ask them a little bit more. And this is a 9 points part, so I wanted to do it faster. I wanted to do an easier item. And to me, the best way is to ask them to write the sequence. I just tell them to write in letter A, to write, I don't know, 21, 3, and 4, for example. And as I said before, they know already this because we have worked this in class. And the other listening item, identification. Well, I think this is the most normal way to evaluate a body, since in class normally one the way to learn the body parts is by pointing different parts of the body. So this is, to me as a teacher, is practical to to grade this just by ask them to write number 1 in the nose, or number 2 stomach, for example. And as I said, this is, I think this is good for them, it's easy for them as a students, and it's easy for me to grade too. And the last part, production. I have to I have to tell you that I have to think twice how to evaluate colors, since it's not practical for me as a teacher to print pages with color because it's more expensive. So I thought, how can I evaluate colors without using colors in my test? And then I thought, well, I can just use like pencils, here, pencils, color pencils, and I can ask them to choose 4 different colors, and they can do a sentence for me using the colors that they chose. Of course, they have to say the color. They have to, I show them, oh, this one green, so they have to say, okay, that is green. They have to they have to produce simple sentences, of course, simple sentences with this, with the color. So why did I decide to use color pencils? Well, because it's cheaper. Because I have pencils. Because my children have pencils. So it's nothing that I have to buy. I don't have to invest on that. I have just all what I have to do is to take my pencils with me to that day for the test and use them. Easy, just like that. It's something valid and it's not expensive. So for me, it's really practical. So I will have 10 different color pencils in there, and they have to choose 4 different colors, and they have to produce a sentence. And that is why I decided to use this item, and that is why I decided to use these these to evaluate colors this way. And then you can see my guide in the listening part, matching. For example, the letter A is circle, so I wouldn't just use words, isolated words. I know that is not good, and I know kids can give a little bit more. I know that they understand more. So I know that I can tell them the circle is small, so they know that I'm talking about a circle, so they have to match circle. So that is why I like to use sentences, because I don't like to underestimate students. They can give more. And well, since we study this in class and we do exercises like this in class, so I'm pretty sure they are able to do this. And then completion, well, that one is the sequence. the numbers that I want them to write, identification, the same. I don't want to just give them isolated words. So I will say, this is my nose, this is my leg, and they have to write the numbers in there. And the colors to use for the oral part, introduction, I will use yellow, purple, brown, black, red, white, orange, pink, blue, and gray. Those ones are the most common ones. That is why I want to use them with them. And what feature, I think that this is everything. And well, I hope that you liked my presentation, teacher. And see you on Sunday. Bye, teacher.